Yeah. And welcome to another live one for all of you Biconics wrestling nerds out there. And welcome to another edition of the Friday Night Faction review for WWE's Smackdown. I guess I'm a host at this point. I don't know. I was only supposed to be running tech for this, and then I got sucked into the blob that is normally Evan and the professor. But I am your host, Mikey, joined with me always by my lovely SmackDown co-host, Evan, my bud. How are we today?
What's up, boys? It's your boy, Minnie, Evan, however you want to say it. I got a computer now, so my angle's a little different. So we're chilling.
We love to see the upgrades.
Oh, like
Uh,
those.
as I
Guess I'm here
mentioned
to
last
stall,
week, for the
guys.
next couple of weeks,
So,
you will see alternating members of Friday Night Faction come in and
LA
out.
Knight came back.
So
That
this
was
week,
dope. I don't know what we're
it's
talking
going to
about.
be me
Technical
and Minnie here
difficulties. We'll
to
cut this
review
out of the editing.
SmackDown.
Skibidi
And I
bop bop
gotta
bop bop
say,
bop.
I kind
Oh,
of dug the
lost connection to the
SmackDown.
server. Oh, it's
This
me
was
that
a
went
fun
offline.
one. Especially we talked a bit about this off camera, but the fact that at the time of this recording, we're less than 7 days away from Fastlane, and we're just starting to get matches for the card. Oops. So we're literally then less than a week away from Fastlane, so that should be interesting. Oh, absolutely. Alrighty. Well, but before we get into that, because some of us will be back to do the go home. Well, I mean, we'll be doing the go home shows this week, but let's just jump straight into this SmackDown. So SmackDown opens up with the Bloodline, mostly Jimmy Uso again, running, calling the shots all over the place, and running up and down SmackDown this week like he normally does, acting like he runs the place. I'm like, ooh, and you can tell Paul Heyman is not having it. He's not having it. Of course. So Yep, I know. So Paul Heyman tries to do his opening promo, but then Jimmy snatches the microphone away and basically recaps what happened last week with the beatdown of AJ Styles and John Cena. And then all of a sudden, Carl Anderson decides he wants to be AJ's best friend now, and he comes down to the ring, and then he fights Jimmy and Solo, which then leads us into this really I mean, I was like, yeah, I was just like, y'all, where were you guys last week? Like, what happened? But I mean, AJ did tell them he didn't want them to be involved because they're not taking anything seriously. I have to give credit to Mia Yim this week because we'll talk about her in a little bit. But this opening segment led into a very short, I don't want to say a squash match, but it was kind of a squash match. Carl Anderson versus Jimmy Uso. Jimmy picks up the victory. Solo and Jimmy beat him up afterwards, and then they leave. And then the slap heard around the world. Mia comes out. Jimmy's talking mess, and then Mia like slaps him across the face, and Jimmy oversells. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" As deservedly so, because Jimmy Uso is being a little turd right now. But I mean, that's true. I mean, that's very, very true. So after this, really quickly, we get a backstage segment with Santos Escobar. So Santos talks about how he's excited for his match against Ray. And leading into this has been a journey to get here, but he will finally have the opportunity tonight to hopefully become a champion. And he would love nothing more than to be able to do that while facing his mentor and his idol, Rey Mysterio. And I will be honest, at first I got a little worried here because I was like, "Oh, is Santos turning tonight?" I was like, "This it's gonna be a thing, isn't it?" Yeah, I'm kind of glad we didn't. Which then leads into the Grayson Waller effect with Bobby Lashley. This one didn't last long because essentially all this does is that Grayson talks to Bobby and he basically calls out the Street Profits because they aren't ready to go all in with Bobby. Street Profits come out. And Bobby Lashley just simply tells them, if you want to prove to me that you have what it takes and I didn't bet on the wrong people, you need to show it to me. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Then we get a video package with Dragon Lee because he was also here on SmackDown as well. So that was fun. Um, which then goes to, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So okay, so and you'll hear this later when the No Mercy review comes out, but I'm like, Dragon Lee's been all over the place. I wouldn't be surprised if he just gets called up pretty soon. I mean, I think he's ready to go, but we'll see what happens with this because he had a match on Raw, he was on SmackDown, he guest refereed the North American Championship match at No Mercy, and then here we are with him in the audience for this next match, which is Austin Theory versus finally Cameron Grimes is back on my television screen. Oh, Cameron. I feel Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what this match was. It was a glorified squash match, and, Austin Theory won, but then he gets in the face of Dragon Lee, and so that seems to be setting up a feud, which, I mean, we got confirmation later during the bumpers portion that it's going to be Dragon Lee versus Austin Theory. So, no official word yet if Dragon Lee's gone from NXT for good or he's just, running up and down the roster, which I'm okay with. Mhm. It really, really is. Love to see it. So, after this, again, this was like maybe 20 minutes in total, and we're kind of going quickly through it because these first 20 minutes, there wasn't really a lot of time. Because then we get to the next. Yeah, it was weird. Then it went by quicker than usual because then after Austin's match, we get the United States Championship match between Santos and Rey, and this was like another 20-minute match, like how last week's women's championship match was 20 minutes as well. We got like 2 commercial breaks and everything. I will say that probably the first half of the match was a little slow for me, but then it picked up. Yeah, it picked up during the second half. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. And again, if this is what we're getting every single week, I am fine with championship matches on television. It would be a good thing. However, I will say I was surprised to see that Ray retained the title with a surprise roll up. So, yeah. Yeah, especially if those championship matches don't. Oh, definitely. And I mean, again, if you wanna make great TV, let the champions, like, lose their belts and let the championship change hands, but again, this match ruled. I loved it a lot. The second half was a lot of better than the first half of this match. Ray winning with the surprise roll-up was kinda surprising, and then Santos was a little distraught afterwards, so we didn't really get any resolution of whether he would turn or not because the Suit Profits, as we have now dubbed them apparently, uh come and attack LWO after the match, and Bobby Lashley is happy that the fact that both Angelo and, Montez proved that they are with Bobby, so we have officially have the Street Profits now turn heel, I guess. They're still way too over for them to be totally booed. But what do I know? Bro, it was a weird, like, suit slash, like, cardigan kinda sweater situation, and I was like, "What is this?" Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure, and again, I mean, we didn't have to wait long because backstage, LWO, Ray and Santos and the rest of LWO are getting looked at, and we get confirmation it's going to be LWO versus Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits at Fastlane this Saturday. So I'm here for it. I'm excited. At least we got another match for Fastlane, and we would be getting more matches for Fastlane later in the show. So after this, commentary takes a little bit of the time on SmackDown, and they to basically talk about that WWE signs Jade Cargill from AEW. So it's crazy to me that we're living in a time where people are going to different promotions. I mean, at the time of this recording, Jade is signed with WWE. Wrestle Dream for AEW's tonight, and supposedly there are rumors that Edge is going to be debuting on AEW tonight. It's crazy to me that we have everybody going everywhere at this point, and I'm actually cool with that because it gives me seriously. I mean, we get to see matches that we know nor under normal circumstances we wouldn't think possible, but now that everyone is kind of going wherever they want, it's a beautiful thing to see. So, and according to the reports from what I could find too, WWE is, I think, letting Jade keep her name, and so which honestly might be a thing from TKO because under the Vincent Kennedy McMahon regime, they would come up with the name so they can solely own the rights and have all the money. But if they're letting Jade keep her name, then TKO might be willing to work with them, be like, certain things we'll keep money of, but you get to keep your name and all that. So that's great. So after that, we get a recap of the championship match from last week between Io and Asuka for the WWE Women's Championship match, which me and the professor both said that that match really ruled last week. The only thing we hated was the distraction from Charlotte and Bailey, which caused Io to pin Asuka to retain. But Io won't be done with Asuka and Charlotte because of what happens after the only women's match on the card tonight. Okay, so I got to ask this question. Go for it. No, it was really interesting. So before we get into like the pseudo main event, we do we do get a vignette from the boys of Pretty Deadly that are continuing to show Elton Prince's healing journey from his separated shoulder. So, Minnie, I have to ask, how do we feel about the Yes Boys? I love them so much, and if we continue to get these small little vignettes every week, I'm totally okay with it. And then, of course, after this little vignette airs, we backstage we see the Brawling Brutes who were watching this whole thing are like, "What the actual hell was that?" So obviously, when Elton is ready to go and he is medically cleared, it seems that we're going to be doing the Brawling Brutes and Pretty Deadly, which I'm cool with. My question is, where's Sheamus? Oh no, really? Oh man. Oh man, that's unfortunate. Well, here's wishing Sheamus a speedy recovery, and hopefully we'll see you soon, bud, as soon as you get back. So good for you on that one. All right. So in the pseudo main event, as Minnie had mentioned before, we get Charlotte Flair taking on Bailey. Commentary made it a point to say that this is the first time in 3 years since these two have fought each other one on one in a singles match, which is crazy to me. Then I had to remember Bailey has been out for almost a year of those 3 years due to injury. So that's really unfortunate. Um, I was confused by this match in the sense that okay, let's break this down and then I'll get your opinion on this. So Charlotte cuts a heel type of promo before the match, but she's technically supposed to be the face in this. Sure, fine, whatever. The match itself was okay, but Charlotte gets the win here, as Charlotte tends to do. And then Bailey cuts this promo, and then they surround Charlotte in the ring. Asuka comes down for the save. And then Bailey out of nowhere makes a triple threat match for EO's WWE Women's Championship at Fastlane. Which, by the way, I got to add the subtle touch of EO like telling Bailey as soon as that was done, "I'm fluent in Japanese." Blah blah blah. Is that what you want, Asuka? And EO's like, "That's not what she said in Japanese." That was such a fun moment. I I was kind of disappointed with this match in the sense I was like, they made it a big deal. I was like, oh yeah, Charlotte and Bailey haven't fought each other in 3 years. And then it was okay. It wasn't the worst thing. It was just okay. That's yeah, I actually agree with you. It was below Charlotte's standards, and I know Bailey can be a little bit better. Again, this wasn't horrible. I was just disappointed. I will say, however, and I'm gonna give a little scoop here. I'm excited for this triple threat. And why am I excited for this triple threat? Well, technically, so it's no secret if you follow us on social media that I did go to the WWE Super Show house show that came out to my neck of the woods about a week and a half ago. It was a lot of fun. One of the matches that we got that night was a triple threat for the WWE Women's Championship match, and that was Io, Charlotte, and Asuka. So if it was anything like we got at the house show, just on pay-per-view level quality, I am actually here for it because at the house show, they gave that match 20 minutes. It definitely was. I That was my match of the night, but of all the matches we got at that house show, that was a lot of fun. And I feel like I kinda cheated because I got a little preview, but I just hope they turn it up a notch at Fastlane for that match. I'm excited because Io and Asuka going against each other is always something I'm willing to see, and then throwing Charlotte into the mix, I think this is going to be a really, really fun match. And so, yeah, so I thought this while this match in the segment wasn't inherently bad, I will say this was probably my least favorite thing of the night so far. And then we get to which is weird. So that was the main event wrestling wise, but then we get to the actual main event, which what closes out the show. And this is contract signing part 2. So throughout the night, John Cena has had travel issues, I guess. And yeah, that's what they told us. Whether or not it's true or not, who knows? So John Cena's in the ring. He is signing this contract. And also through the night, Jimmy Uso's beating up on people so they don't team with Cena for this match or whatever. So obviously, this was definitely the way this was supposed to happen last week, but because LA Knight got COVID and wasn't able to be there, we got to rectified the situation. So John Cena's out there, the Bloodline come down to beat him up, and as it's a 2-on-1, then the music hits of everybody's current favorite superstar of with the fans, LA Knight. Yeah. Comes for the save, beats up on Jimmy, beats up on Solo, and then signs the contract himself. And gotta love John Cena is like overacting in this situation, like super shocked that it was great. But made official for Fastlane is John Cena and LA Knight versus the Bloodline, which is being represented by Jimmy and Solo. And that is how SmackDown goes off the air this week. So, before we get into ratings, Mini, let's quickly talk about what we have confirmed so far for Fastlane now that it's fast approaching. So far confirmed for Fastlane, we do have John Cena and LA Knight versus the Bloodline. We have Io defending her WWE Women's Championship match against Asuka and Charlotte. We have the LWO versus Bobby Lashley and the Suit Profits, as we're calling them. And then, as we found out on Monday Night Raw, it is going to be Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in a last man standing match. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait. It's gonna be good. So far it's a pretty heavy SmackDown card for Fastlane. And so I wonder, because next year is going to be different. I wonder if we're unofficially going to be starting to get that Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Payback was more raw focused with all the matches we had, and then this seems like Fastlane is focusing more on SmackDown. So I wonder if going into next year with the rest of the pay-per-views that are not like the big 4, I wonder if we're unofficially going to be focusing on brand specific matches for certain pay-per-views like we're getting. It seems that Fastlane is mostly going to be SmackDown, and then Payback was a lot of Raw matches as well. So I'm excited to see what this is. But that does bring us to the end of the SmackDown review. Uh we will go into our reviews and then we will go into our outros. So I will go first. My rating for this SmackDown, again, it flowed very nicely this week. It was paced really well. Nothing seemed out of place. While I was underwhelmed with the women's pseudo main event before the contract signing, I thought overall I really enjoyed this. Of course, my match of the night is going to the United States Championship match. And out of 5, I'm going to give this a solid 3 out of 5. I thought this was a pretty decent episode of SmackDown. Yeah, and I hope that moving forward we continue to get all this stuff. But that is going to bring us to the end of another Friday Night Faction review. Tune in next week where the professor will be back, hopefully, as we try to alternate between people. And yeah, me and Professor will be doing the Go Home show for SmackDown, and then me and Minnie, you can catch us for the Go Home show for Raw. Hopefully, it's gonna be a crazy week. But if you enjoyed this review and want to check out other Friday Night Faction reviews, as well as other TV and pay per view reviews. You can check all those out here on the Biconics YouTube Wrestling YouTube page. You can also check us out at BC WrestlePod across all of the social medias to get up to notifications when we go live with these new videos, as well as some behind the scenes shenanigans. And if you want to hear more unhinged formats of our opinions, make sure to check us out at the Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where we pretty much do this, just expand it. It's longer and it's more unhinged and it gets a little violent sometimes, but it's great. Uh, well, okay, like it's a lot of verbally violent. Like we talk a lot and we tell each other we're wrong half the time, but that's part of the appeal. You should really check those episodes out where podcasts can be found because literally where you get the unfiltered and like raw versions of ourselves. It's great. But that is going to be it. This has been another Friday Night Faction review from your hosts, Mikey and Minnie. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until the next review, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay biconic, you beautiful peoples. Until then, we'll see you later.